10 things I miss as a British expat living abroad. Hi, my name's Ben. I've been living abroad for the last 5 years, and although I love living abroad, which I do, I'd be lying if I told you there was nothing that I miss from the UK. So here is a list of 10 things. Number 1 is pies and pasties. As a northerner, one of the hardest things about living abroad is leaving meat pies and meat pasties thousands of miles away. If you know anywhere in Asia that sells like good British pies and pasties, then let me know in the comment section below, because I haven't found any just yet. Sometimes I legit wake up with stomach pains having dreamt about Greggs the Bakers. That's why number 1 on my list is pies and pasties. Number 2 is watching sports. Now, I do miss going to live sporting events. There is an abundance in the UK. Obviously, we have one of the top football leagues in the world. The atmosphere at football games in the English League is pretty unrivaled. The talent you can see on display in the Premier League, once again, is at the top level of sport. And it's not just football. There's a lot of different sporting events. You've got cricket, rugby, athletics, all those kind of things seem to be happening in the UK. Less so where I live now. I don't just miss going to live sporting events, which I do. I also miss watching sporting events on TV. A lot of the big games are in the middle of the night, like at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Champions League's always really early in the morning or really late at night, whichever way you want to look at it. A lot of sporting events, the World Cup was at really unwatchable hours. It was very difficult waking up at 4 in the morning to watch, England play and then get up for work at 6 in the morning. So it wasn't always possible, although I did my best. And then for certain big events, I just really can't. I've definitely missed out on a ton of sort of worldwide sporting events, and that is something that I do miss about living in the UK, because they always seem to be considered in scheduling for those sporting events. Number 3 on the list of things I miss about the UK is gigs. The UK has a great music and gig scene. Bands and artists from around the world will do tours in the UK, so you get to see some of the biggest names in music live. I also miss the smaller events. I miss going into the back room of a pub and listening to a new band on a Thursday night. It's just not quite the same where I live, although there is a ton of live music where I live. I do miss the UK music scene, gigs and all that kind of stuff. Once again, it's pretty unique, pretty special to that part of the world, in my opinion. So yeah, that's something else that I do massively miss. Also, like the music festivals, they're not quite the same. I miss the large array of venues, bands, music events, and crazy crowds that seem to be pretty special in the UK. So I do miss all of that. Number 4 on my list of things I miss about not living in the UK anymore is exhibitions. So this is a little bit geeky, a little bit nerdy, but you do get a lot of sort of traveling exhibitions in art galleries or in museums as well. You get to see some really genuinely interesting stuff. Certain exhibitions kind of like tour Europe and America and those kind of places. So occasionally you would get something really interesting, really cool come to town. I distinctly remember like an Egyptian sort of exhibition that came to, I think it was like the Millennium venue that was in London for a while. And I still remember that to this day. I was really young. I was at like primary school. We traveled down to London to go and see all these artifacts from ancient Egypt. It had a massive effect on me. Same is true to certain like art exhibitions. I remember like an impressionist art exhibition that travelled through and came to Manchester, once again left an impression on me. So yeah, those things I do dreadfully miss, actually. I was fortunate enough to live in a large city in the UK, and thus saw some like great exhibitions in the museums. Great artists of art history. Some of the biggest names have like works travelled through or stayed in the city of Manchester where I grew up. So, and it's not quite the same out here. They don't seem to have that same kind of exhibition, museum and art galleries. Maybe if I lived in one of the major cities, there would be a bit more, but I don't. So yeah, that's something I miss about the UK. I do think that the UK really excelled in this kind of thing, looking back in reflection. Number 5 on things I miss from the UK is public transport. I honestly can't believe the words coming out of my mouth right now, but I do genuinely miss the British trains and British bus systems. I can remember growing up, going to work or college or university, waiting for a train or a bus that was 15, 20 minutes late. Obviously it was cold and rainy. I'm from the north of England. And I was absolutely furious, and everyone else was at the bus or train stop. We're all complaining, saying things like this wouldn't be happening in Germany or somewhere else. And for good reason. We're all going to be late for work, late for college, late for university, all that kind of stuff. So that did happen pretty regularly. Sometimes the train or the bus would be quite late, and you'd be late for work. However, it really doesn't compare to where I live now. I've literally had to wait 6-7 hours for a bus once in my previous province when I was trying to travel on holiday. The bus, we asked where it was and he was just like, yeah, we don't know, it's on its way still. Like 5 or 6 hours. Once I was on a sleeper train that sort of had some engine problems and it added like 4 hours, I think, to our journey. So compared to like 20 minutes on a train or bus delay, it really doesn't compete. All of that said, when I'm back in the UK, I will never complain about a bus or a train being 15 to 20 minutes late ever again in my life. So at least I've grown. Number 6 on my list of things I miss from the UK is the infrastructure. In my 24 years of living in the UK, from childhood to before I left, I probably experienced like 2 power cuts at home, and they were probably like maximum an hour in length. I think I remember the water being turned off once for like an afternoon, and we were warned about that so we could prepare for it. But out here, that is something that happens on a regular basis. I would say where I live now, the power and water seems to go off sometimes for many, many hours, sometimes all night, sometimes multiple days in a row, where the power is just off and you got no warning, no explanation. Same is true with the water, and that's a real challenge. Both are pretty challenging, but the water especially, and that once again it happens at least once a month. Like the water, maybe it'll be only just be off for 1 hour, maybe it'll be off for like 5-6 hours most of the night, and you don't really get any pre-warnings about it. It's just that the infrastructure isn't quite as robust and reliable. Very challenging, very hard to deal with, very common in certain parts of the world. So yeah, I do miss the reliability of the infrastructure in the UK at times. Number 7 on my list is not needing a visa. Having or staying or living in a country and relying on a visa is pretty stress inducing. It's not like a passive thing that you can just forget about. You have to be very much on top of it. You have to be very much making sure you understand the different rules and regulations, requirements for that visa. You need to make sure you're not breaking any rules on your visa, or you could face real serious consequences. You have to stay on top of things like 90-day reporting, re-entry permits, renewal, all that kind of stuff. It was so much easier. Life was so much easier when I was living in my home country and I didn't need to even consider something like a visa. Now it's an absolutely massive thing, an absolutely massive and consequential part of my life that was, didn't exist before I started living in a different country. Now you're going to need this wherever you go. I can't bemoan it too much, but it is something that I miss. I do miss sort of like that little bit of freedom of not having to worry about visas. Number 8 on my list is clothes shopping and clothes availability and that kind of thing. So living in a different continent, especially where sizes will probably be different. To lay it out simply, I live in Asia and I'm like, probably in the UK, I'm like a size M or a size L, probably a size L now. Maybe my days of being a size M in the UK are over. But yeah, I would be like a size L. Out here, I'm 2XL or 3XL. I'm at the end of like the top end of the sizing out here. So the sizes are just, different. A small out here in Asian is not a small back in Europe, and this can make buying clothes very challenging. Sometimes, like I said, I'm at the top. I'm XXL in most sort of brands from out here, and even some foreign brands that come over here are different, size. So I'm at the top end of sort of the size chart. So sometimes they don't have that many things in my size. Sometimes, I have like the option of like 2 t-shirts or 2 jackets in the entire sort of mall. Same true is for trainer sizes. I don't have particular big feet. I'm a UK size 10, but even then it's sometimes, a challenge getting my sizes. At the big mall, I'm okay. They do have like up to my size. I have friends who have bigger feet than me and they really struggle. But like if I go to a regular sort of high street shop, sports shop, whatever, oftentimes I'll find that they don't have my size in shoe. So getting sizes, clothes shopping, finding the styles and brands you love can also be a challenge. And it's something I miss about living in the UK, especially because I lived in a major city. I never had to worry about buying clothes, getting certain things, which I do sometimes have to do out here. Number 9 on my list is British ale. I miss a good pint of British ale. For me, there's not many things in life I enjoy more than a proper good pint of ale, and I don't have much more to say on that, but yeah, I do desperately miss British ale. The first thing I'll be doing when I go back home next month, in fact, is I'll be going out into town buying a meat pie and a pint of ale. Some of the things that I desperately miss about the UK, for sure. And finally, number 10 on the list of things I miss is international cuisine. Now, this might sound funny. You perhaps would think that living abroad would give me a wider range of international cuisine, but that's not the case. In the UK, you can get food from pretty much every corner of the world. I miss Indian food the most in the UK. It's pretty special there. But not just Indian food, Italian food, a few of it, Mexican food. It's not as common where I live. It's pretty hard to find, and I do miss the international cuisine. Back in the UK, I didn't realize how lucky I was growing up there when it came to food. If you're interested in moving abroad, then check out this video over here. Should be right here, that I made previously. The video is titled How to Move Abroad, so check that out if it's something you're interested in.